Hi, Reddit. I've spent more nights than I can count scrolling through this site, reading stories that made me laugh, cry, and yell, yes, at my screen. Never, ever did I think I'd be the one typing out my own novel length saga of humiliation, and dare I say it, triumph. But a recent blast from the past just brought everything full circle, and I need to share it. Maybe it'll give someone else a bit of hope, or at least a good story to read. This isn't just about a boy calling a girl ugly. It's about how that one soul crushing public moment of being branded and discarded lit a fire under me I didn't know I had. It's about transforming from the inside out. And yeah, okay, it's also about the incredibly sweet, long awaited satisfaction of watching the person who tried to shatter your world realize he made the biggest mistake of his life. So, let's start from the beginning, Northwood High, senior year. I was Ava Miller. If you squinted, you might have seen me hovering near the library stacks or hunched over a laptop in the coding club. My defining features were a persistent constellation of acne that defied all known treatments, glasses so thick they made my eyes look like tiny fish in bowls, and a glorious mane of frizzy brown hair that had a mind of its own, usually corralled into a desperate ponytail. My fashion sense was purely utilitarian. Baggy hoodies were my shield, worn out jeans my uniform. I was smart, consistently acing my classes, passionate about literature and the clean logic of code, and my social circle consisted of two equally brilliant, wonderfully nerdy best friends, Chloe and Mark. Then there was Ethan. Oh, Ethan. He was the sun around which Northwood High orbited. Star quarterback, blinding smile, an aura of effortless cool that made girls swoon and guys want to be him. He was the definition of out of my league. Yet, for 6 bewildering months, he was my boyfriend. How did this celestial alignment happen? Looking back, it probably started as one of his infamous dares. His buddies, a pack of interchangeable jocks, likely bet him he couldn't snag the brainy outcast. He approached me in the library of all places, a book on astrophysics, upside down, I later realized, in his hand, asking for help. I was flattered, flustered, and utterly clueless. He laid on the charm, and I, starved for any kind of romantic attention, lapped it up. He won the dare, but then, to my complete shock, he didn't immediately ditch me. He'd occasionally walk me to my AP calculus class, send sporadic hey texts, and even endured dinner with my parents once, who were thrilled I was finally putting myself out there. I, however, was living in a self-spun fantasy. I convinced myself he saw some hidden depth in me, that he valued my intellect and my, admittedly, quirky sense of humor. I was so desperate to believe this improbable dream that I willfully ignored the glaring red flags, like how he only ever wanted to hang out at my place, never his. Or how if we were at the mall and bumped into his cool friends, he'd mumble a quick intro and then practically sprint in the opposite direction, dragging me along. Dates were always to obscure, dimly lit diners miles out of town, or study sessions that were mostly him copying my homework while I babbled nervously about my day. He never held my hand in the hallways. He never posted a picture of us. I was his little secret, his geeky pet project he wasn't quite ready to show off, but I told myself it was because he was private or shy about public displays of affection. Ethan, the guy who lived for the spotlight. The mental gymnastics I performed were truly Olympic level. The day it all came crashing down was our annual Spirit Week pep rally. The entire student body, all 1,500 of us, were crammed into the sweltering gymnasium. The air throbbed with bass from the band, the scent of popcorn and adolescent desperation. Banners hung everywhere. Cheerleaders performed gravity-defying stunts. The grand finale, as always, was the announcement of the prom king and queen nominations. Ethan was, of course, a frontrunner for king. His name was called. The gym exploded. He sauntered onto the makeshift stage, effortlessly catching the microphone tossed to him, bathing in the roar of the crowd like it was his birthright. Standard Ethan. Then, Mr. Henderson, our well-meaning but chronically overwhelmed principal, beamed and said, "And Ethan, I understand you have a special person in your life you'd like to give a shout-out to today?" My breath hitched. My heart did a frantic tap dance against my ribs. This was it. He was finally going to acknowledge me, us, in front of everyone. Maybe this was his grand gesture, his way of proving all my secret hopes right. Chloe, sitting beside me, grabbed my hand, her eyes shining with vicarious excitement. "Oh my God, Ava, this is it," she whispered. Ethan scanned the bleachers, his gaze sweeping over the sea of faces until it landed squarely on mine. He smirked. But it wasn't his usual charming, panty-dropping smirk. This one was different, colder, calculated. My stomach twisted into a knot of pure dread. "Yeah, Principal Henderson, I do," he said, his voice amplified, echoing through the cavernous gym. "Actually, I wanted to make a more official announcement. Most of you probably don't know this, but I've been seeing Ava Miller." A ripple of confused murmurs spread through the crowd. Heads turned, eyes, hundreds of them, found me. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a mortifying blush I couldn't control. This wasn't pride. This was the dawning horror of being singled out under a very, very bright spotlight. "And I just wanted to say," he continued, pausing for dramatic effect, his voice dripping with a cruel theatricality, "that it's over." Absolute, deafening silence. You could hear the collective inhale of 1,500 teenagers. My own lungs felt like they'd forgotten how to work. "Why?" he asked, as if to an invisible interviewer, pacing the stage with the false gravitas of a terrible actor. He stopped, pivoted, and pointed directly at me, his finger an accusatory weapon. "Because, well, look at her." The silence stretched, becoming an almost physical pressure. Then, the first snickers broke out from his inner circle of friends, quickly followed by more nervous, unsure laughter from others, who just followed the popular crowd. "Seriously!" Ethan's voice boomed, now laced with a performative disgust that felt like a physical blow. "How could I, Ethan Carter, be with someone so ugly? I mean, the glasses are bad enough, the zits are a nightmare, and don't even get me started on that hair." He gestured vaguely towards my head with a look of utter contempt. "Let's be honest, I was doing her a favor. Think of it as community service, you know? But my reputation can only take so many hits. So, Ava, consider yourself dumped, publicly. So there's no confusion, no awkward, 'we need to talk later.' This is it. We're done." The gym erupted. It wasn't applause. It was a horrifying cacophony, gasps, shocked exclamations, outright jeers from his loyalists, and a wave of uncomfortable, voyeuristic stares. His friends were actually cheering, slapping him on the back. I just sat there, impaled by his words, by the sheer, brazen cruelty of it. Every single eye in that gymnasium felt like a laser beam burning into my skin. The word ugly ricocheted around the gym, around my skull, branding itself onto my very being. Chloe had her arm around me, her face contorted in a silent snarl of fury aimed at Ethan, trying to physically shield me. Mark, on my other side, looked like he was about to vault the bleachers and commit homicide. I have very little memory of escaping that gymnasium. I think Chloe and Mark formed a human shield, hustling me out through a side door as the whispers and laughter followed us like a pack of hyenas. I vaguely recall the rough brick of the outer wall against my back, then collapsing onto the cold, grimy floor of the girls' bathroom, the sound of my own ragged sobs echoing off the tiled walls, so violent they felt like they were tearing me apart from the inside. Ethan's sneering face, the collective weight of all those eyes, the reverberation of ugly, ugly, ugly. It was a nightmare reel playing on a loop in my head. The weeks that followed were a special kind of hell. I became Ugly Ava. The nickname stuck, whispered in hallways, scrawled on a bathroom stall, even muttered by a couple of particularly brave or stupid freshmen as I passed. Ethan, meanwhile, was a conquering hero in his own mind. He immediately started parading around with Tiffany, a head cheerleader, someone worthy of his aesthetic standards. He'd make a point of ostentatiously making out with her whenever I was within a 10-foot radius. I ate lunch in the library, buried myself in books, and counted down the seconds until graduation. Prom was a definite no-go. Walking across the stage to get my diploma felt like traversing a minefield, every rustle in the crowd a potential jeer. All I wanted was to vanish. And then, mercifully, summer arrived, and with it, an unexpected lifeline, my Aunt Carol. My mom's younger sister, Carol, was everything I wasn't, a successful, free-spirited graphic designer living the dream in sunny California. She was vibrant, confident, and had always been my secret confidant and biggest supporter. Chloe, bless her fiercely loyal heart, had called Aunt Carol and given her the unvarnished, brutal play-by-play of the humiliation. The next day, Carol called me. "Sweet pea," she said, her voice warm but firm, "pack your essentials. You're spending the summer with me. Operation Phoenix is a go." That summer in California was my metamorphosis. Aunt Carol didn't try to fill my head with platitudes about inner beauty. Instead, she gave me tools and space to excavate my own. First, we tackled the surface because, let's be honest, feeling a little better on the outside can kickstart the inside. She marched me to a highly recommended dermatologist. No miracle creams, but a sensible regimen and a prescription that, over weeks, began to calm the angry red landscape of my face. For the first time since I was 13, I saw patches of clear skin emerging. It was revolutionary. Next, the dreaded glasses. She cajoled me into trying contact lenses. The first time I looked in the mirror without those thick frames, I was shocked. I actually had eyes, and they were a rather pleasant shade of hazel, flecked with gold. Then, the hair. A brilliant, edgy stylist she knew chopped off inches of damaged frizz, gave me layers that actually worked with my natural wave, and taught me a few simple tricks. Suddenly, my mess became effortlessly chic waves. We hit thrift stores and small boutiques, and Carol taught me about cuts that flattered my frame, colors that made my skin tone pop, and how to express my personality through clothes rather than just hiding in them. But Operation Phoenix was far more than a makeover. Carol introduced me to the rugged beauty of the California coastline through daily hikes. We'd tackle steep trails, sweat buckets, and be rewarded with panoramic views of the Pacific that made the dramas of Northwood High feel like a distant, insignificant speck. The physical exertion was a balm, a way to burn off the anxiety and residual shame. She saw my love for coding and, instead of dismissing it as nerdy, found me advanced online courses in web development and mobile app design. I channeled all my pain and frustration into creating elegant algorithms and functional, beautiful interfaces. I was building things, tangible things, and it was incredibly empowering. I started a food journal, not for dieting, but to understand how different foods made me feel. Fresh, whole foods gave me energy and mental clarity. Aunt Carol also introduced me to mindfulness and simple meditation techniques, which helped quiet the relentless negative self-talk. I devoured books on resilience, philosophy, and inspiring biographies. Bit by bit, the ugly label began to peel away, losing its adhesive power. I wasn't transforming for Ethan or for the jerks at Northwood. I was doing it for Ava. I was unearthing the person I'd buried under layers of insecurity and fear. By the time August rolled around, the girl staring back from the mirror was familiar, yet new. Her skin was clear, her eyes bright and direct. She smiled more easily. There was a quiet confidence in her posture I'd never possessed. I chose a university 1,000 miles away from my hometown, in a city vibrant with culture and opportunity. It was a true blank slate. No one there knew ugly Ava. They just met Ava, the keen computer science major, the girl with a quick wit and an interesting perspective. The physical changes were noticeable, of course. At Thanksgiving that first year, some of my more distant relatives did double takes. My skin, while not porcelain perfect, because real life isn't an Instagram filter, was healthy and clear. I embraced my contacts, but also invested in a couple of pairs of stylish, less fishbowl glasses for my study sessions. My hair, now nourished and understood, fell in soft waves. I'd developed a personal style, a blend of classic pieces, quirky vintage finds, and comfortable but chic. More importantly, I carried myself with newfound assurance. I walked with my head up, I made eye contact, I spoke up in class. I joined the University Coding Society, naturally, but also a hiking club, And, in a move that would have horrified my high school self, I auditioned for and joined an amateur improv group. Turns out, I had a knack for comedic timing. I made genuine friends, people who appreciated my intellect, my slightly offbeat humor, and my loyalty. I dated a few guys, a sweet aspiring architect, a funny philosophy student, a kind med student named Liam. Nothing that screamed forever, but each respectful, positive interaction was another layer of healing, another piece of evidence that Ethan's pronouncement was about his own ugliness, not mine. Years flew by, 5 of them to be precise. I graduated summa cum laude, snagged a coveted software engineering role at a dynamic startup in a major tech hub. I had a sunny little apartment I adored, a fantastic circle of friends, and was pouring my spare time into developing my own mobile app, a mindfulness and habit building tool born from my own journey of transformation. Life wasn't just good, it was fulfilling, challenging, and joyful. Ethan Carter and the Northwood High pep rally incident had faded into a distant, blurry anecdote, like a scene from a bad teen movie I'd once watched. Then the email landed: Northwood High Class of Year, 5-year reunion. My immediate visceral reaction was a hard nope. Why voluntarily revisit the scene of my most public trauma? But Chloe, now a razor-sharp corporate lawyer who could probably make a stone confess, called me instantly. Ava, you are going. End of discussion, she stated, not asked. This isn't for them. It's for you. You need to walk into that gym, head held high, and obliterate any lingering ghosts. Don't let that greasy, insignificant pimple on the backside of humanity think for 1 second he still occupies any space in your head. Mark, now a respected investigative journalist for a national paper, chimed in on our group call. She's right, E. Plus, word on the grapevine is that Ethan's post-high school trajectory hasn't exactly been meteoric. Might provide some light entertainment. Their unwavering support, coupled with a tiny, undeniable spark of curiosity, and maybe a microscopic desire for a little harmless visual revenge, tipped the scales. Okay, fine. I booked a flight. I also bought a new dress, a sophisticated, deep emerald green silk sheath that fit like a dream and made me feel like I could conquer small nations. It wasn't overtly sexy, just quietly powerful. The night of the reunion, walking towards that all-too-familiar gymnasium, my palms were definitely sweating. The cheesy "Welcome Back Wolverines" banner and the faint scent of industrial floor cleaner and stale popcorn did little to quell the rising tide of anxiety. But then Chloe, looking like a Vogue editor in a killer jumpsuit, linked her arm through mine, and Mark, ever dapper in a tailored blazer, met us at the entrance with a reassuring grin and a flask of something to take the edge off. The initial encounters were surprisingly pleasant. People I hadn't spoken to in half a decade did actual double takes. Ava? Ava Miller? Wow, you look incredible. The genuine surprise in their voices was a balm. It wasn't just the polished exterior. I could see them recalibrating their memories of the quiet, awkward girl with the confident woman standing before them. I chatted, I laughed, I reconnected. There was no trace of ugly Ava in their demeanor, only curiosity and a surprising amount of warmth. And then, across the crowded, poorly lit gym, near the sad-looking punch bowl, I saw him, Ethan. The golden boy had tarnished. The once perfect sun-kissed hair was noticeably thinner on top and receding at the temples. He'd developed a distinct paunch that strained against the buttons of his slightly too small rumpled polo shirt. The confident swagger had been replaced by a kind of weary slump. He looked ordinary, tired, like life had served him a few too many disappointments. He was talking to a couple of his old football buddies, but even they seemed to be looking over his shoulder, scanning for more interesting company. I overheard snippets as I got closer. Something about a dead-end job at his dad's car dealership, a messy breakup with Tiffany, the cheerleader, who apparently ran off with a semi-pro surfer. Our eyes met. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing. Just the polite, vacant glance you give a stranger. Then, a flicker, confusion. And then, dawning, horrified recognition. His jaw didn't just drop, it unhinged. The cheap plastic cup of lurid red punch slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers, splashing dramatically down the front of his shirt and onto his shoes. It was so perfectly, comically cliché, I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from grinning. He just stood there, dripping and gaping like a landed fish, as I, flanked by my stylish co-conspirators, smoothly approached. "Ethan," I said, my voice perfectly even, calm, with a hint of amusement I couldn't quite suppress. "Long time no see. Having a bit of trouble with the refreshments?" He sputtered, actually sputtered. Ethan Carter, Mr. Cool, the guy whose verbal takedowns were legendary, was reduced to incoherent noises. Ava? Is that... Wow, you look... He trailed off, his eyes doing a slow, incredulous sweep from my tastefully heeled shoes up to my smiling face, lingering a little too long for comfort. It wasn't the appreciative glance of an admirer, it was the bewildered stare of someone whose entire worldview had just been shattered. "Different?" I supplied, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips. "Yes, well, 5 years can do that to a person." Different is the understatement of the century, Miller. One of his old cronies, Dave, blurted out, nudging Ethan with an elbow. Dave had always been one of the marginally less awful ones. "You look phenomenal. Seriously, what have you been up to?" he asked, genuine admiration in his voice. "Just focusing on what matters, Dave," I replied easily. "Building a life I love. Turns out, investing in yourself pays pretty good dividends." I saw Ethan flinch. Ethan finally managed to string a sentence together, though his voice was raspy. "Yeah, um, Chloe mentioned you were at my prestigious university. Computer science, she said. That's, that's really something. Impressive." "Thanks," I said coolly. "I really enjoy it. I'm a lead software engineer at a startup in City now. We're actually in the final stages of launching a new app I designed and spearheaded. It's been an incredible ride." I saw that flicker again in his eyes. Surprise, definitely, but also a distinct green-tinged shade of envy. Chloe, never one to let an opportunity pass, delivered the next blow with surgical precision. "She's being modest, Ethan. Her app is generating some serious buzz. She's already had meetings with venture capitalists. And she's got an amazing boyfriend, Liam. He's a surgical resident. Absolutely adores her, and honestly, he's gorgeous." Okay, Liam and I were serious, and he was wonderful and supportive, but Chloe was definitely playing up the adores and gorgeous for maximum impact. I shot her a tiny, appreciative glance. Ethan's face visibly crumpled. He swiped distractedly at the sticky red stain blooming on his shirt. "Oh, wow, that's great, Ava, really great. Good for you." He sounded like someone had just run over his puppy. He then lowered his voice, attempting a conspiratorial tone, trying to draw me a step away from Chloe and Mark. "Listen, Ava, about, back then, senior year, that whole pep rally thing." I stood my ground, a small smile fixed on my face. Chloe and Mark remained solidly by my side. "What about it, Ethan?" I asked, my voice utterly devoid of the tremor I'd once feared would betray me. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, looking profoundly uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze. I was such a monumental jerk. A complete idiot. I I don't even know what I was thinking. It was a disgusting, horrible thing to say, to do. I was young, arrogant, insecure, just trying to look tough in front of my idiot friends. He finally looked up, his eyes filled with a desperate, pleading expression. "You look, honestly, Ava, you look breathtaking. I was so wrong. About everything. So incredibly wrong. You were never ugly," I finished for him, my voice still calm, but now underscored with a fine, sharp edge of steel. The word, once a poisoned dart, now felt inert, his property, not mine. He winced as if I'd physically struck him. "Yeah, that. I've regretted it every single day since. Well, maybe not every day, but a lot. Especially when I heard how well you were doing. And seeing you now..." He gestured vaguely, helplessly. "I really messed up, didn't I? Biggest mistake of my life." This was it. The moment I'd replayed in my mind 1,000 times, in 1,000 different scenarios, during countless sleepless nights in the early years. The apology. Delivered, I suspected, not from a place of deep, empathetic remorse for the profound pain he'd inflicted, but from the shock of seeing ugly Ava transform into someone he suddenly, desperately found attractive and successful. His regret seemed rooted in his own loss, not my suffering. I took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the silence stretch for a beat. And then, the words I'd unknowingly been crafting for 5 years came out, not with anger or bitterness, but with a serene, unshakable clarity. You know, Ethan, I began, my gaze steady, locking onto his. For a very long time, what you did at that rally was like a shadow over my life. You tried to define me, to reduce me to one cruel, carelessly uttered word in front of our entire world. You wanted to break me, to make me feel small and worthless. And for a while, I admitted, because it was the truth, you succeeded. I did feel ugly. I felt insignificant, ashamed, and deeply, profoundly alone. His face seemed to age 10 years. He opened his mouth, perhaps to offer more platitudes, but I subtly held up a hand, and he fell silent. But then, I continued, my voice gaining a gentle strength, something truly unexpected happened. Your spectacular act of cruelty, that very public, very deliberate humiliation, it became the absolute rock bottom I apparently needed to hit. It forced me to strip away all the noise, all the external validation I'd been so desperate for, and really look at myself. It made me decide who I wanted to be, for myself, not for you, not for the approval of others, but for Ava. So, in a very twisted, ironic way, Ethan, I suppose I should almost thank you. He looked utterly, hopelessly bewildered. Thank me? For that? Yes, I affirmed, and a genuine, unforced smile touched my lips. Because if you hadn't been so profoundly, spectacularly awful, so cartoonishly villainous, I might have stayed that timid, insecure girl forever. I might never have dug deep enough to find my own strength, to discover my passions, or to build this incredible, joyful, fulfilling life I have now. A life, I added, letting my gaze sweep around the gym, then back to him, that you are definitively and blessedly no longer a part of, in any way, shape, or form. I let that pronouncement hang in the air. His eyes searched mine, desperately, probably looking for a chink in the armor, a sign that his belated regret might earn him a reprieve, a chance. He found nothing but calm, clear dismissal. So, yes, Ethan, I concluded, my voice gentle but imbued with an undeniable finality. You regret it. I can see that clearly, and you absolutely should. But you shouldn't regret it because I glowed up, or because I'm successful by some arbitrary metric. You should regret it because you were gratuitously cruel. You should regret it because you chose, intentionally, to try and diminish another human being for a fleeting moment of playground power. That's your ugliness to carry, Ethan. Not mine. Not anymore. I turned to Chloe and Mark, who were both beaming with pride. Shall we? I hear they've actually got decent mini quiches this year, a vast improvement on the stale Doritos of our youth. And this punch is clearly a hazardous substance. They chuckled. After you, Ava, Mark said, offering his arm with a flourish. As we began to walk away, Ethan's voice, thin and strained with a desperation that was almost pitiable, called out, Ava, wait, please. Maybe we could get coffee sometime? Just to talk? Catch up properly? I could drive down to my city. I paused at the threshold of the gym doors but didn't turn fully around. I just offered a brief glance over my shoulder, a polite but distant smile on my face. That's a kind thought, Ethan, I said, my voice light, breezy, and utterly, irrevocably final. But my dance card is pretty full these days, and honestly, my life is so much better moving forwards. I don't really have any interest in looking back. And with that, I stepped out of the gym and into the cool night air, flanked by my two dearest, truest friends, leaving Ethan Carter standing alone, punch-stained and crestfallen, a rapidly fading ghost from a past I had not only survived, but thoroughly, decisively, and joyfully conquered. The rest of the reunion was an unexpected delight. I danced, badly but with enthusiasm, to cheesy 2000 hits, reconnected with people who shared genuine stories of their lives, and laughed until my sides ached. As I was heading out, I felt a small tap on my shoulder. It was Dave, Ethan's old buddy. "Hey, Ava," he said, looking a bit sheepish. For what it's worth, what Ethan did back then, it was messed up. We all knew it, even if some of us were too stupid or cowardly to say anything. You handled yourself with incredible class tonight. And you look, well, happy. That's the main thing, right? It is, Dave. I smiled. Thanks. Walking to the car with Chloe and Mark, my phone buzzed. A text from Liam. Hope you're having fun storming the castle. Thinking of you? Call me when you're done slaying dragons? I grinned, my heart feeling warm and full. The ultimate kicker? Just before we reached the parking lot, we passed a small group of former classmates, and I overheard one of them, a girl I vaguely remembered named Jessica, say to her friend, "Oh my God, did you see Ava Miller? She's like a total freaking goddess now. And did you hear about her job? Ethan Carter is the biggest idiot on the entire planet for what he did. He dumped that for Tiffany, who ended up pawning his class ring for surfing lessons. What an absolute tool." I couldn't help it. A small, satisfied laugh escaped me. So, there it is. He regrets it. He regrets it not because he suddenly developed a conscience, but because the ugly girl he tried to publicly destroy refused to stay broken. She rebuilt herself, on her own terms, into someone strong, happy, and completely indifferent to his belated remorse. And that, I've discovered, is the most empowering, most satisfying kind of regret it now story there is. It's not about revenge. It's about outgrowing the people who tried to hold you down and building a life so bright their shadows can't even reach you. Thanks for letting me get this all out. It feels incredibly liberating to finally put that last punctuation mark on that chapter of my life. Not with bitterness, but with a profound sense of peace, closure, and okay, yeah, maybe just a tiny, well-deserved sprinkle of smug satisfaction. High school it-boy boyfriend publicly humiliated me, calling me ugly, and dumping me in front of the entire school. Fast forward 5 years. I'd built an amazing life and career and underwent a significant internal and external transformation. At our reunion, he was a washed-up version of his former self, saw me, and practically groveled with regret when he realized what he'd thrown away, especially since I was now hot and successful. I delivered a polite but firm thanks, but no thanks, and walked away feeling like $1,000,000, leaving him to his punch-stained regret.